And all of the shit that you could ever want to do for your family, your kids, your loved ones, it's all going to be on a whole nother stratosphere. It's time to stay focused.
The spirit of Detroit.
Welcome all to another OnePride Worldwide special broadcast. This is great to be here. I'm with John Macaroon, Walter Stringer, Ted Raff. I'm with the man himself, John Macaroon. Round of applause for John Macaroon. Round of applause. As always, I got my best co-host, Walt Stringer. Darcy is producing today. Walt Stringer of Detroit Lions Avenue, film extraordinaire. Whoa. There we go. Darcy is in the building today, producing, working my sticks there, and he's doing a great job. Ted Raff, NFL insider. This is my favorite guy. Man, I'm telling you, Ted Raff is the best dude in the world. He came on this show, signed up for us the rest of the season, and this dude is literally kicking ass every day. And I know y'all don't like me to curse, but I had to curse because he's kicking ass every day. So shout out to Ted Raff. We got a great show for you guys. Let's get in our first subject. John Macaroon, it's on you, man. I wanted to talk about Brian Branch. Obviously, we coming off a great win over the Packers, and I guess the league seen he lost his head against the Packers. Malicious hit. He was a repeat offender. We're seeing all this jargon in the league that, you know, he's hitting lower shoulder, and obviously Ted Raff and Walter Stringer, y'all gonna chime in us as well. But I just wanted to know your opinion of Brian Branch and that hit that he took just a couple of days ago.
Yeah, it's just the whole situation is just unusual because so many mixed messages from the coaches to the players. Look, the Lions want their players to be aggressive. They want them to be violent. They openly talk about it, but there is still a fine line of leading with your head and causing, helmet to helmet contact. That's just the way the league is kind of going. And it's unfortunate. I like the hit. I like to see, I grew up, Ted knows probably too, with Ed Reed, the great safeties that used to like to hit, and you just realize that, the game is just at a different spot with the focus on health and brain injuries and the long-term health of the players. It's being legislated out. So clearly when the hit happened, I jumped out of my seat and it was like, yes. But then you see the flag and you understand, okay, it's going to be a penalty. But then to realize that it got taken a step further by the league calling down to the official, Clete Blakeman, and to have, Brian Branch ejected, that set him off. And now he lost his cool. He recognized it. He acknowledged it today. He told the reporters, hey, I can't be known for that. I can't do that. He got talked to by the coaching staff. Not only did he get a 15-yard penalty, he's double, giving the middle finger to, the entire stadium, the officials, just losing his cool. And he gets another 15-yard penalty. And that's what really upset Dan Campbell. And that's what's going to get him talked to. You look at it and you say, he's going to learn his lesson. He learned it from the coaching staff, and he's going to learn it on Saturday when he gets that envelope, and he's going to face a fat fine, and it's going to be pretty hefty. And it's just the way it is. And it's unfortunate, that this is kind of, it's really, like I said, I've joked around on the podcast a lot. I say, friends don't let friends play cornerback or any defensive back. It's just impossible. It's all set up for the offense. It's not right. It's just really difficult. It's set up. And now look, you got to be able to adapt. And one of the defensive coaches today told us, like, hey, he's just got to target lower. But you got to also recognize that have the advantage of seeing it in super slow motion. If you're a defensive back, you got a split second to decide, hey, if I hesitate, this guy's going by me, So it's just unbelievably tough for these athletes. But the one thing that Brian Branch can control is his reaction. If you got ejected, you got to accept it. But I do think that the league is targeting Brian Branch and maybe even sending a message to the Lions that, hey, your open love of discussing violence and aggression is probably going to be reined in pretty quickly. And here's the other part of it. You're the Lions and you openly talk about aggression and violence. What do you see on social media now floating around the last half hour? All the defensive backs are rocking the middle finger picture that's going around. All of them. Terry and Arnold, Carlton Davis, Amik Robertson. So it's just that fine line of balancing wanting to be aggressive, wanting to be rebels. It's great for the fans. They like it. But here's the problem. The league is not going to like that. They're not going to tolerate that. And I just hope that it doesn't end up costing them in a big moment, because you don't want the reputation of being violent and being nasty. I don't think that that's what the case. I just think that they thought that at that moment, they felt that Brian Branch intentionally tried to harm an individual. And in slow motion, it can look like that. But it's just unfortunate when you open Pandora's box to subjectively decide to throw people out. I'm against it 100%. And it's just really tough.
Okay.
If you're a fan of the Lions, it's one of those deals like the Chris Chelios in hockey. If you're a fan of the Lions, you love having Brian Branch. If you're an opponent, you hate Brian Branch. It's just deals where he's got to learn to walk that fine line, but this time he crossed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Walter Stringer, tell us your thoughts on it, because it blows me away. But that hefty fine is going to hit him. Hey, look, if you want to hurt somebody, hit him in the pocket, okay? Don't hit him in the face, just hit him in the pocket. What do you think, Walter Stringer?
Yeah, I thought the hit was it deserved a penalty. I did. Watching it live when it happened, it was wasn't even necessarily boom boom. You can say the Chris Olave situation was more boom boom than that, and that was terrible with what happened. And there were a couple of reasons that led to that situation happening to Chris Olave, but I felt that he had a couple steps. He didn't have to necessarily do it. We've seen guys dive over the top, slow up or whatnot. I didn't think it was completely necessary. And I think the league has gotten to a point now where they're not just looking at these hits saying, well, was it helmet or helmet? Now they're also looking at these hits and asking the question, was it necessary? Was the pass catchable? Was it necessary for you to still hit the dude at the time that you hit the dude in the position that you hit him when he was in? So that's also something I think fans have to take into account. People in the league also have to take into account. And for Branch, man, I don't want to see this for him, because it's real easy to get a bad reputation and then they start picking on you. And I don't want to see them picking on him.
Yeah.
Because I think that hit, man, the Jordan Poyer hit on Keon Coleman was worse. The Chris Olave hit was awful. That was something nobody wants to see at all. The entire situation, how it developed him, it was terrible. But, the Brian Branch situation, it was a football hit. We don't even have to go back to the 90s. Some people say, let's go back to the 90s and look at 90s football. You can go back 10 years ago. That was a rough hit, but it was still clean, I felt. And like you said, Atwater, Ronnie Lott, Mark Carrier. Mark Carrier played for the Lions for a minute. And yeah, Benny Blaze, someone mentioned Benny Blaze in the comment section. When you develop a reputation as a big hitter, they start flagging you. You don't get the benefit of the doubt anymore. It's rough, man. And same thing with being a defensive player in the league, in the NBA, at least in the NBA for that matter. So, yeah, did he deserve a penalty? Yeah. Just being unbiased and honest about it. Because if it would have happened to Amon-Ra St. Brown, we'd be fuming right now.
Oh, yeah.
Just being honest about it. It looked rough, but the football player in me says it was a clean hit. By the new rules in the league, was it necessary? It had no impact on the play. Let's be honest about it. But safeties, linebackers in the history of the game, the name of their game is unnecessary hits. Unnecessary hits. Safeties and linebackers, they specialize in unnecessary hits.
That's a hit we talk about at home. That's a hit we defend you in public and we talk about it at home.
Oh yeah, that's what they did. What's wrong with you with that hit?
Ted Rath, from a medical perspective, you've worked, you've coached, you've been around the league. What do you feel? And thank you, Walter. What do you feel about the hit? Was the hit and the justification of it, ejection? Just tell me all your thoughts on it, and we'll get to Ted Rath.
Yeah, Walt and John, phenomenal points, because first and foremost, I'll echo what Walt just said. I'm a football guy at heart. I'm a meathead. I love big hits. That was what I played defense. I played defense through college. I was a safety. I transitioned to linebacker. I like contact, and the Benny Blades of the world. Someone mentioned that in the comments. That's awesome. John Lynch, who's a general manager in the league. You look at these guys who the name of the game and what they built their careers on was violence and action. But the game is changing. We're at a point now where player health, player safety, it's a big deal. And I commend the league. The NFL has done a phenomenal job, because I have close personal friends who've had multiple concussions, and it's something we need to get out of the game, or at least minimize and mitigate as much as possible. I've had head injuries. There's no place for it if you can prevent them. So with that being said, was it a penalty? Yeah, I think it was a penalty 100%. The ejection is kind of where, I say, was that necessary? That can impact the course of the game, especially when you're talking about a player of the caliber of Brian Branch, who can dynamically impact a football game and either help or hinder a team's chances to win a football game. You're talking about one of, if not the best team in football right now. So that's where I think I echo once again, Walt. He brought up the Olave hit. Absolutely. He brought up the Jordan Poyer hit when Dolphins versus the Bills. Both of those hits were very similar. What I do like, and I will say this again, the NFL, I love the fact that New York is in the headset. They're calling the officials and they're saying, hey, you might have missed something. Let's reevaluate this, get the call right. Why? I've been on the opposite side of so many calls. I was on the field during the Calvin Johnson catch at Chicago when they literally instituted the Calvin Johnson rule, the catch rule. Jim Schwartz, funny enough, the Houston Texans, when we played them in 2012 Thanksgiving and they had a missed touchdown call, he throws the challenge flag, which was illegal at that point. We get assessed a 15-yard penalty. They put the Jim Schwartz rule. I've been on the opposite side of some of these. So I'm thankful that we're getting to the point where the league is going in there and they're correcting these things and they're just making the game a little bit cleaner. They're expediting the review process. So I love that. So bottom line, I do think it was a penalty. The ejection, you can argue if you're going to eject Brian Branch, I would argue you probably have to eject those other players that were in very similar, if not even slightly worse situations. But I'll end with this. NFL officials do a phenomenal job, and I am guilty more than anyone. I've criticized these guys on the sideline. I've said things I'm not proud of, and I have said very horrible things to these guys. But they're humans, man. They're trying to do a great job, and that game runs fast. You're talking about things that are going a million miles an hour, and they're trying to be as accurate and consistent as possible. That is an incredibly tough job. So overall, I think, due diligence, if we're going to eject them, but make sure that we have a consistent standard moving forward and the players are clearly educated on what they're anticipated and expected to do.
Well, yeah, I think that, looking at it from my point of view and perspective, when Brian Branch left that game, I was not confident at all in great value Joseph. I was not confident in great value Joseph. If y'all know who that is, that's Brandon Joseph. I was not confident. I was scared back there. We have no Hutch. We have no Brian Branch, who's probably the best defensive player outside of Hutchinson on his team and probably in the league. He can do so many things. He's so capable, best man defender in the league. He's one of those guys. But when that happened and I seen them put Brandon Joseph, I'm going to get confused with these Josephs, man. I'm gonna just call him BJ for short. When I seen BJ back there in cover 3, in cover 2, and covering guys and actually making a statement and making his own presence felt in the league, when I seen that, man, I was so impressed. I was impressed with the level of depth that this team has. I was impressed with the level of resolve that they has. How many times in Lions football have we had a penalty or whatever, and it just takes the wind out the building? We can think about Stafford with the catch in Dallas. We could think about the Calvin Johnson rule, as you prefaced before. Even Walter Stringer talked about it like, he thought it was a deserved penalty. I didn't think it was worth an ejection, but at the same time, it showed me what this team is made of, and I don't see no one messing with us in the future. So I just wanted to preface that and say that. Shout out to you, BJ. Never mind. That sounds weird. Hold on.
Anyway, man,
we're at the middle point of the season, guys, and I want to get your take on this. Halfway point of the season, in the NFC, who is the biggest threat to the Detroit Lions? Obviously, I'm a homer. No one's the biggest threat to me anymore because every team that we face that's magically 6-0 or magically the greatest team, they're a joke. But for your standpoint, guys, we got the experts in here. We got the film experts to the bottom of the screen. We got the guys who actually in the sideline, in the suite, either writing or doing physical stuff. Who's the biggest threat? We got the Texans, the Jaguars, the Colts, the Bears, Packers, Bills. We got all these other franchises vying for the same spot we're vying for. Who's the biggest threat?
You mean in the NFC or like to us?
Oh, just let's go NFC, and then I'm gonna say overarching threat.
Oh,
okay. So NFC first, and start with John Macaroon, and I'll send it over to Walt and Ted.
Yeah, it's a 7-1 start for the first time in decades. It's just an amazing situation to cover, being that I've covered and followed teams that didn't win a game to where they're at. The Stafford situation was one in which you had a moment there in time in 2014 and just didn't happen. And then now you have this new regime. It's 7-1, and now you're starting to compare. Oh, look at this. Who's the threat to the Lions, the top dogs, number 1 seed in the NFC? And to me, I look at the number 2 seed. I really am impressed with the Commanders. They got a young quarterback, and they have a young quarterback on a rookie deal, which is kind of how some up-and-coming teams have been developed. And they got a head coach that has a lot of respect across the league in Quinn, a great defensive mind. And when you have a situation in which you can execute a Hail Mary, there is some kind of that feel of team of destiny kind of thing going on. And you realize, okay, maybe it's a young team. And can a Jaden Daniels come into Ford Field in a playoff game and outshine the Lions? I don't think so. But it would come, I think, for all Lions fans, full circle if it was the NFC Championship game and it's the Lions and Washington in Detroit. I think there's some karma there that could go down. But Kingsbury is running that offense in such a way that is really impressive. And you like McLaurin, you like what they got going on with Austin Eckler. I have Eckler on my fantasy team, so I can see his progress. I like what the Commanders are doing just all the way around, top to bottom, and they've done it quickly. And kudos to them. And I'd love to, I wish they would play in the regular season at this point just to kind of see where they're at. But hey, if you meet in the postseason, that's why the Lions' goal this year is number 1 seed, have everybody come through Detroit. And it's going to be a nightmare for anybody coming to Ford Field. If they are blessed to be able to advance past, the 49ers, Eagles, teams that are also in the mix in the NFC, I'm conflicted. Do you want to beat the man in Patrick Mahomes? I'm scared, as the proverbial say, scared S-less of Patrick Mahomes. You could be up 24-3 at halftime and the game's not over, But at the same token, I do think the Lions match up pretty well with what's going on. The Chiefs, everyone looks at Mahomes, but their defense is still really playing at a very high level. Watch their defense, and what Coach Spagnuolo has been able to do with that defense is just all world. But to me, I think the money Super Bowl that would draw the biggest ratings and the most fun for a reporter or the viewer is going to be the Lions and the Ravens. It's just going to be probably a 35-31 kind of game, back and forth. The Ravens don't play any semblance of what looks like NFL defense. And Lamar Jackson has had his fun, his way of maneuvering through Aaron Glenn's defense. So I want to see that. But as we sit today, at this point, even though the Lions did make a move with Zadarius Smith, I think my heart will be pumping against either of those opponents. So that's just the way it's going to be. PTSD with the Lions, it's real with me. And I would just be highly anxious against any AFC opponent at this point in time. But the Lions have the most weapons they've had in a long time. So they can stand toe-to-toe with anybody. But I can't sit here right now and say, yes, crown the Lions. Not just yet.
Hey, J Mac with the prediction. Okay, I like it.
Lions Ravens. That's the money. That's the money game.
That's the money game. The NFC Championship goes through Detroit. I love it. Walter Stringer, what you got?
All right. I'm gonna stick it to strictly the NFC. I do believe we are the best team in the NFC. So therefore, I don't think any team right now, after watching everybody in the East, the West, the South, and including our division, which we're 2-0 right now. I don't think anybody poses a legitimate threat of beating us unless we have an off game. That's why I see right now this team is too hot. They're not really turning the ball over that much. They're not having any short fields created for the offense, the opposing offense. Everything is going right for this team right now. Will somebody derail us and cool us off in the next few weeks? It's very well possible. But right now, I think this team is just too hot. But I will say this, and I talked about this with you, Lamar, a couple hours ago. We were discussing things about the show. The Philadelphia Eagles, ton of talent. The defense is playing better as of late. They got all-world running back Saquon Barkley. They got great wide receivers on the perimeter. 2 guys who could probably be number ones on almost any other team in the league. But they have a situation where they still can't score worth a damn. They still struggle to crack 20 points. And I'm not really too fearful of Jalen Hurts beating me from the pocket at all. I think a team that can't beat us passing from the pocket, they can run the ball, but that's kind of like where the rubber meets the road. They want to run the football. We want to stop the run. But the problem is the Eagles really can't beat you from the pocket with Jalen Hurts. Therefore, I'm not really fearful of the Eagles like that. We've been proven to be able to handle the Rams for the most part. Love Stafford, love McVay, love the receiving core. But at the end of the day, that defensive line is kind of light in the pockets. Not really worried about that. And I had a feeling that was going to be an issue for the Rams this season anyway. A lot of young players in that front seven, pass rush guys. None of those guys are really run stopping guys. Team's been kind of handling them up front anyway. The team that I really believe is going to cause us the most problems, they're 6-3 right now. They're 3-0 on the road, which is good for a young team like that. They're also 4-0 in their own division, and that's the Atlanta Falcons. And I look at the Falcons for a few reasons. They're kind of almost carbon built like us. They got 2 elite safeties on the back end. You can always counter that. When you got elite safety play in this day and age in the NFL, you're good. Cornerback play, A.J. Terrell. Is he still the Pro Bowler he was 2-3 years ago? Maybe not. Cornerbacks do have these little lulls from year to year, but I still think A.J. Terrell is a damn good player. Opposite of him, you can argue what they have there. The front seven is very young. They got a bunch of young edge rushers that haven't really figured it out too much right now. But if you look at them on the offensive side of the ball, they can't really pass block worth a damn, but they can run block. And they got a stable of running backs. Bijan Robinson is one of the best, most talented running backs I've seen come into the league in a long time, right along with Gibbs. Algiers right there. Kyle Pitts is still a dynamic player when they can get him the football. Drake London is a hell of a player. Darnell Mooney is starting to come along. I think that's a team right there. You have 2 running backs, Bijan and Tyler Algier. That's a team right there, and I said it before the season started. Cousins was coming back from injury. He's a veteran quarterback. Give Kirk Cousins the first half of the season to kind of fill things out with that team. They were going to hit their stride the second half of the season. They're 6-3 right now, 4-0 in the division. All this team needed last year was capable quarterback play. Now they've got capable quarterback play, and Cousins is actually, this is the youngest team he's had. He's actually gotten to that locker room, and it seems like he's galvanized that locker room. The teammates love him. The city loves him. And Atlanta can actually score points this year. Ain't that something? So, yeah, I think the Falcons, man, I don't think they can beat us. But I think the Falcons, you could find yourselves in a 30-30 game with Atlanta real quick because they can score. They can make plays on defense. And the head coach over there does know defense. So I would say the Falcons, but being realistically, man, I think this team has a glow about them right now.
Yeah.
Nothing is good. We talked about that. There's not a damn thing you can do. You take our Branch away, we win anyway.
Yeah.
You take our Hutch away, we go undefeated.
Right.
You take our defensive tackles away, Mingo and Pascal, we keep winning. It don't matter.
This team
at all.
Team.
Hold Jared Goff to 145 passing yards. Don't matter.
Yeah.
We gonna still find ways to win.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Marty Schottenheimer when he was with the Cleveland Browns. We have a gleam. We have a gleam, and it's evident. It's evident. It's probably the most evident thing when you lose Hutch and you lose a player like that. and obviously you lose Branch, and you still decisively are winning and controlling
The
the
playmaking.
24-3.
Yes.
And it's just, oh man, it makes me excited that I have a competent franchise and I'm a part of a competent group. And I actually can wear my colors proud, because when I was wearing these colors, either overseas or either anywhere, when I was wearing these colors,
They
man,
laughed at you.
you know what they did? They said, why you do that to yourself? They said, why you do that to yourself? What's wrong with you, man? You good? Is y'all good? And that was when we was 1-6. You good, man? We don't want to watch
Yeah.
that. I was like, what? So Ted Rav, tell me your thoughts and opinions. We got the, oh yeah, I was about to call him something else. That's a slur now. Washington football team. And
Football team, yeah.
Football team.
I actually liked that too when they came up. It started to grow on me, football team.
Yeah. I'm such a year, 2 years behind with that stuff. Walt said Atlanta. Obviously, you got your own pick. Me personally, I hate the Rams, but I'm gonna get in that later for obvious reasons. But Ted Raff, tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, first and foremost, I mean, what you guys are saying is completely true. When you have a team as dynamic as Detroit, they can find a way to win. They can find a way to win when they lose their best defensive player. They can find a way to win passing the ball, running the ball. They're a dynamic team that doesn't have one single identity, and that's a dangerous team. So first and foremost, that I'm going to also say, Walt, stop copying my notes, because I had the Atlanta Falcons in here. I wanted to talk about them for a couple reasons, because number one, Raheem, phenomenal coach. From a defensive side of the ball, the other team that we're talking about, the Washington Commanders, a defensive head coach. When you have a Dan Quinn, when you have a Raheem, the two qualities, and these guys know each other very well. They build systems very similar. Raheem was his coordinator. He was actually his offensive coordinator for a short time in Atlanta. They went to the Super Bowl together. These guys are culture guys. They build a culture. That entire locker room in both of those organizations, I guarantee this, they are tight. They are literally locked in step with each other. They believe in the coaches. They believe in the players. These are two dangerous teams that I would say look out for. The Falcons, first and foremost, this is a fun fact. Zach Robinson, their offensive coordinator, he was a backup quarterback for Stafford in Detroit for a stint. I had him as a player. Zach is a phenomenal player. He later came to LA. I recommended him to Sean. We hired him on staff. He's grown. He's developed. This is a dynamic play caller. He's not at Ben Johnson's level yet because he's just getting his feet wet, but he's learned from Sean McVay. He's learned under the Kellen Moores of the world. He's learned under these offensive minds, and everywhere that he's been, he is a good play caller. He gets guys to buy into the system, and he has weapons. We talked about the Pitts, the Drake Londons. They have talent. Bijan, a beast. They have guys like this. Washington built somewhat similar. They have a dominant defense. They build a pass rush. They build the system, and they have Kingsbury. You have a dynamic play caller on the offensive side of the ball. When you have a defensive head coach and you can give that defense away and then just say, be the head coach of the offense, that helps so much with that offensive coordinator, and that's what you have with those two teams. The other team I want to touch on, because we talked about a couple people in the chat, Philly is a dynamic team. And the funny thing, they're built very similar to Detroit. You build the offensive line. You build the defensive line. You get a dynamic running game. But I'll echo what Walt said. They're struggling to score, specifically in the first quarter and really the first half. Kellen Moore still getting his play calling in. He's still getting his offensive system and everything into that playbook. He's trying to get Jalen caught up, everything there. And what I worry about the Philly team, when they lose players, when they lose an AJ or they lose a Devontae, they are not the same team. So when you take away one of those key pieces, really dissimilar from what we're talking about Detroit, you can lose your best player and they still find a way. They just sub next guy up and they still dynamically score points, or they stop points from being scored on defense. I think that's a really cool thing. And as you continue to go down this, when we talk about the AFC side, I 100% agree. The Ravens would be my dream Super Bowl, John. I'll echo you on that. The Chiefs would be a phenomenal matchup, but what I particularly love about the Ravens, I've talked to people who have MVP votes in the league and in the media. Literally, you're talking about Jared Goff and Lamar Jackson. Those are the two guys right now that are in the MVP running. I would say 1 and 2. Pat Mahomes is in there too. He's always going to be in there. But you talk about Jared, statistically, what he's done, it's hard for me. And I love the guy. I love Jared. It's hard for me, and I'm biased to go against that guy. Lamar's doing a great job too. But I would say that's 1A and 1B as far as the MVP rally is right now.
Exactly.
So, Ted, real fast, you said that you had some choice things to say to some officials. Detroit always kind of loves paying attention to who's calling games. We all remember Cleve Blakeman, officials, here in the relationship with Detroit. Was there a call that you remember that still gets your blood boiling that you remember that was the one that pissed you off the most?
Oh,
What was
man.
it?
How long can we turn this into a multi-day podcast?
Right?
Honestly, it was the Calvin Johnson, the catch rule when that happened in Chicago, because it was essentially a catch to win the game. He had the ball in one hand, he put it down, got up without the ball, and we're literally thinking they knew it was the wrong call. The Schwartz one, when he threw the flag, this is 2012. What that stands out to me. I looked at it this week because we're playing Houston, and you look at the matchup. We were playing, and that was a must-win game for Detroit. Multiple coaches lost their jobs that year because we had been to the playoffs for the first time in well over a decade the year prior. The Lions were riding, we were rising, and we're trying to develop a culture, and we're going into the fourth year with Schwartz. Schwartzy is a very intellectual guy. He's one of the smartest people I've ever been around, and he throws the flag because he's heated. I'm standing behind him. I'm like, don't throw it. It's automatically reviewable. He throws it, and I know that we're going to get assessed a penalty. So I have a problem when things aren't done right. And that call was the player was down. His elbow, Dorsett's elbow and knee was down. The play should have been whistled dead. They let it go. We can't review the play because he throws the flag. That one still bothers me because I believe it was 3 or 4 coaches lost their jobs that year. And then the following year, Schwartz lost his job. So you look at the cataclysmic effect, the domino effect that this league has with one call. And that's what in my heated moments where I'm getting on an official or whatever it is, I try to be better, and I'm a little older and more mature now, hopefully. But those moments, I'm thinking that one call could cost so many people their livelihood. And I've lived the life, man. I've moved all over this country, and I have young kids that have moved. At one point, I had a 5-year-old that lived in 5 different states. That's what goes through my mind when I think, oh, man, how do you make that call? That's going to impact so many people. So those are 2 from my time in Detroit that really stick out because those, honestly, they just piss me off, John. They still bother me.
Well, the next time you speak with Dean Blandino, let him know that, I know you like to hang in the Dallas bus, but now the Lions are the it team. So he can come and hang in with Sheila Hemp in her suite, and maybe, just maybe, the big call will go the Lions' way for once. But that's the hope. That's the hope, right? Hang with us.
We'll get him a Ford Raptor at a discount or something. There's got to be something we can do.
Yeah. We're going to get him something. Hey, look. If we have that number 1 seed, I want to speak to that golf thing, and I want to speak to this internally with this officiating. Oh my God! So we got the Texans coming up. So you're going to have a little bit of a heart murmur, maybe a heart adjustment. I don't know. We got it coming up, but we got the Texans, we got the Jags, we got the Colts, the Bears, Packers, Bills, 49ers, Vikings. What is your final record prediction? Because this team right now, John, Walt, Ted, I'm telling you right now, we can go 16-1. This team, I don't see none of
it's very possible.
Yeah. And I know we had a person, I forget which one of you said it, but someone said it earlier today that we might lose to the Vikings because we'll be playing backups and resting our starters. So, yeah, hey, one by one, just tell me who's the threat. Or what's the final prediction for the season?
Yeah, I'll start first. We did it at our website, Lions on SI. My writer said 15-2. Thinks the only loss is going to be to the Bills. I think that's going to be a heavyweight matchup with Josh Allen. You recognize that he's playing a much better brand of football, less turnovers, and I do think that he's starting to get into the groove there. The defense is playing a little bit better, so that's going to be an interesting game as well. Look, the division games are going to be tough. Probably the Bears and the Packers are going to be looking for revenge, the Vikings. So you may end up losing 1 or 2 more games. So I think 13-4, 14-3 is probably most realistic. You never know what kind of injury could pop up at a bad time. You're always going to have that one weird game where you just don't show up. So to me, I think that maybe 2 or 3 more losses. The one game that I think is going to be tough is I think the games that are the hardest are the games that take place on Thursday night or Thursday. And it's just because you don't recover as well. And so I do think they get up for Thanksgiving. The Bears game will always be, I think, a game the Lions will play well. The game in which they play the Packers, I think, is on a Thursday. And those are the games where the way the coaches always describe it, it's mental. It's more mental than physical because after the game ends on Thursday, there's basically no practices. It's just walk through, rest, and then show up, get the game plan, show up and play. And so that kind of is a game where the team that makes the fewest mental mistakes ends up winning. So it's not the best football on Thursday. So there's a game there. Maybe they slip up, but yeah, we're talking 13, 14 wins. And it's great to see this football team being talked about that way. And you could legitimately say, yeah, they could go on a nice run. But like always, you got to get past Houston first. And you'll see. I think this game has a chance to be very much a close game too, with the Texans defense handling business.
Yeah. Hey, look, Texans. Hey, look. I agree with the Bills. I could see us losing to the Bills. Could be a heavyweight matchup. I could see that. But I'm telling you right now, three losses is tough. But it is a long season. I'm gonna get to Walt. 3 losses is tough. But hey, look, you got far to where you're at. You're Sports Illustrated. You're the big time. And you've predicted a lot of things either in SI culture or in Detroit Lions culture. So I'm not fading your predictions. Okay, I'm betting a couple thousand on your predictions for sure.
Thank you.
Walter Stringer, what you got?
All right. It's kind of difficult to really pick this apart because the team is playing so well right now. You kind of banking on this team laying the egg, honestly, because the way that they're playing offensive line, the offensive play calling, the defensive play calling with AG, he's hot right now. Both coordinators are hot. Dan Campbell just has to kind of manage the boat for the most part. He's not being put in situations where he has to make a bunch of weird, tough 4th down calls. He's got a kicker he can depend on. Like, everything is going right for this team right now. But just because and I agree 100% with John, just knowing the nature of the NFL, you're guaranteed to either have a game where you just don't show up, for whatever reason. We see teams lay eggs at home. We see teams lay eggs on the road. Or you could have one of those tough games where the other team just beats you. I mean, when you're hot, somebody's got to cool you off at some point in time.
Yeah.
I would just say, just knowing the nature of the NFL, I would give them probably 15-2. I don't think they lose more than 1 game left. This team, you're bringing in Zadarius Smith. You got some other healthy bodies coming back. Kaminsky may come back. You talking about Broderick Martin. Heard today, Melifonwu as well as Mosley. Don't know what to really make of that, especially with Mosley, but both of those guys have been placed on a 21-day evaluation. So you have the possibility of getting both of those guys back. There's 2 more guys in the secondary. This team could get hot, man. Like, this team could really get hot and be tough to cool off, because with the way they're mentally wired playing on the road as well as at home, I don't see them laying the egg to Jacksonville. I don't think they go to Indianapolis and not take care of business. I think they go to Houston. Houston's got too much going on right now. Diggs is gone for the season. Nico Collins is trying to tough things out and play with a hamstring that's been going on with him for the last few weeks. The defense is still young. Can we handle them offensively? I think we can. I don't see us losing to the Bears, period, either game this season. Eberflus has his issues over there. There could be potentially a team revolt against him. The Vikings, even if we have the NFC wrapped up, do I think Dan Campbell would just trot anybody out there week 18? Vikings competing with the Packers maybe for a playoff spot and just make it easy for them? No. I think Dan Campbell wants to beat their brains in, just like he wants to beat the Packers' brains in a couple years ago, last game of the season when we had nothing to play for, and they went to Green Bay and they beat them anyway. I think Dan Campbell has instilled that type of chip on his team's shoulder where mentally in their minds as a team, there's no such thing as a throwaway game at all. We could be 15, 16, and 15-1, hosting the Vikings, and they're going to still want to be the first team. You mentioned this earlier. The first team to go 16-1 under the new format. Yeah, so I think it's going to be tough to beat this team, man. I keep going back to it. They got a glow about them right now. There's nothing you can do to this team that can trip them up right now. So I would say more realistically, the last team we seen make it through the regular season with 1 loss was the Carolina Panthers. The year they went 15-1 and lost to Denver in the Super Bowl. Was that the last time any team made it through the season with just 1 loss? I believe.
I think so.
So we haven't seen it since then, and this would be the first time under the new 17-game format that the team did it. So this team got a lot of pride too. And the closer they get to it, you think they don't want to do it?
you know, they want to do something special. They're gonna do something special. I don't know Dan Campbell's thoughts on that, but it'd be interesting to hear. I'm gonna circle back around, but it'd be interesting to hear Ted Raff. What's your opinion on this as moving forward? Who's gonna be our final prediction right here?
Yeah, I'll start with Dan Campbell's mentality. I can guarantee you he wants to win every game. And this is probably what's going to come down because number one, the Lions' sole mission right now and their sole focus should be getting the 1 seed. You have to get the 1 seed. It is such an advantage since we went to the 17-game format. There's only one team that gets that bye week, and it is so critically important because no matter what your injury status is, no matter what you're doing at that time of year, no matter how in rhythm you are, that week to rest and to recover and to sharpen your skills, to install, for the coaches to get additional planning time against every opponent that they could potentially face in the playoffs, that is huge. That is a monstrous week. So that we don't call it a bye week. That's a bonus week. That's a gift of a week. That's why traditionally most of the 1 seeds, usually one on one side, AFC, NFC, makes the Super Bowl. So they have to have that in mind. Is it 16-1? I'm going between 15-2 or 14-3. And my main reasoning, I think San Francisco is a game that I look at because if they are fully healthy, and by fully healthy, I mean they get, Christian McCaffrey back and a couple other key players, that's a team that I think can come in any environment and go win. Kyle Shanahan can dial it up crazily. So I think where they are, their defensive line is relatively stout. They got Chris Kasurk, another former coach for the Lions, one of the best defensive line coaches in the league. He will have those guys coming after Jared Goff. And then on the offensive side, I worry about Kyle Shanahan because he is a master play caller. You look at that one. I think that's not a trap game because we know San Francisco is good. I look at the rest of the schedule. When they do have the short week coming in, somebody made the point, I think, John, when they play the Colts and they go into the Thanksgiving game, yeah, you have 3 days of preparation. You go to walkthrough mode. You're really not getting full speed reps. At this point, they're so dialed in because they have had a consistent offensive play caller and a defensive play caller. This system has been in place for multiple years. That is a huge advantage for this team. That's a huge advantage for anyone. So in short weeks like that, where you really don't have a new offensive system like the Bears do with Shane Waldron being a first-time play caller for them this year, he came over from Seattle. That's a huge advantage, Lions. And that's a Chicago Bears team. I think Walt made the point, yeah, they're going through some significant adversity. They got all sorts of craziness going on right now. Who knows if Eberflus is still the coach at that point? They might move on. Who knows? A lot of things can happen between now and then. And then they have a full week to get ready for Green Bay on the following Thursday. That, to me, the only thing that I worry about, Matt LaFleur is from Michigan. He's going to have a lot of family there. He's going to be extra dialed up there. If Jordan Love is truly healthy, same thing. If the health of that team is better at that point because they've battled this year, Green Bay has been down, then that's a game that I think could be a significant challenge for the Detroit Lions. And then outside of that, the Bills I actually like because they're coming off that Green Bay Thursday game. They have 10 days to get ready for that Buffalo Bills team. I worry a little bit less of that. I worry a little bit more about that Green Bay game. That's just a weird timing. You play Thanksgiving, you have family stressors, and then you're playing on the following Thursday again. It's just out of rhythm, and the NFL is all about rhythm. So I think for that reason, I'm going either 14-3, 15-2. But the other key consideration, if they are 16-1, or if they're fighting to get 16-1, do you rest them if you already have the number 1 seed locked up? I'm looking at a guy like Dan Campbell. I don't know if I'm resting him. You might approach it like one of the preseason games where you want to play multiple starters for at least a quarter, a half, keep them in rhythm because it's going to be 2 weeks before they play a real game again. I think that's a consideration. The schedule, people underestimate how much the schedule means, and that's something that I've seen firsthand. I've been on teams where the schedule, if it's not manipulated in the right way, it can harm your team and it can hurt your chances in the postseason. And I've been on teams where we've adjusted the schedule and adapted, and we have literally set ourselves up for Super Bowl runs. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. To circle back around to me, I will say I don't mind them doing a quasi-resting of the starters. Maybe play for 1 quarter, take them out, play for a half. I think, Ted, you're doing it again. You're doing it again. Where you're not black and white, you're just gray. And the gray works. The gray works. You're not red and blue. You're just purple. And it's okay. It works. So, it works for me. I like it. Yeah. I got an injury update for you guys. Obviously, this is coming news to me right now. So breaking news. I just looked at my phone, but I got the notification. Sorry about Ted. I was covering your face up. I got the notification that Josh Pascal says doctors found a non-cancerous mass in his shoulder. that had to be removed. Hence, that's why he's missed the last 2 games. Says he expects to be back this week. So we're going to have Josh Pascal back. We might see a Zadarius Smith, and we might see a rebuilt, retooled offensive line in lieu of the Aiden Hutchinson injury. What do you guys think on that? That's my little bonus question because I'm getting the notification. As in Canada, shout out to Darcy, notification. I'm getting a notification. What do you think, John Macaron? You're muted, brother.
I asked Dan about that today because here's the unlock, and probably this is why Zadarius Smith posted SMH on Twitter, is that he had a bye week this week. He would probably had a vacation planned, and he finds out he's going to get traded, and the Lions, obviously do him a solid. So they gave him today and tomorrow off. Today's practice with the Lions was a walkthrough, so it wasn't a full practice. Tomorrow is their first going to be a practice of the week legitimately for the preparation for Houston. So I think they did him a solid, give him 2 days off, but that's going to be unique. Typically he's playing 40 snaps a game. I think that if he does play, I think there's a good chance he does. I don't think he's going to play his usual amount. Typically, maybe you give him that kind of that intro, you give him like 15, 20 snaps at key moments, let him ease in, because there's still communication that you got to establish and things like that. But it's all good news with Josh Pascal. You hate to hear any medical situations with him. Clearly, someone that's dealt with cancer in the past. So thankfully it was benign, and he's a player that anytime that he's out there on the field, you want him to continue to develop along with Levi Onwuzurike. Walt, I think you mentioned it, Kaminsky, the report is that there's kind of the vibe that he could come back for the postseason, but not sooner. So they could get some guys back later in the year, but it's going to be great to see potentially if Iffy and Emmanuel Mosley can come back. More reinforcements for that secondary is great.
Yeah.
You look at it, the defensive line with Zadarius Smith, I'm expecting to, be able to get at least more than 1 sack every 3 games. You expected a dip without Aiden Hutchinson, but I don't think people expected that much of a dip. But that's the case. Aiden Hutchinson was a legit defensive player of the year candidate. And I think that Aaron Glenn, you got to give him credit for dialing up pressure with the safeties, the linebackers. It's just unfortunately the defensive line is not getting that. They're not getting home. They're getting pressures. It's just not at the rate that everybody would have liked. That's why, hence, they made the move. So Darius Smith, that power defensive end, I think is going to be somebody to help that defensive line, complement everybody. But remember, he's not the Zadarius Smith of 5 years ago. Again, I do think that he's going to be in situations where they'll put him in spots where he can kind of take advantage of his strengths and complement everybody else. But, this football team's going to go, to me, how this offense rolls. Look, you can almost look at this offense and say
that's defense.
Look, to me, if this offense can get to the level of like what we've seen with the Rams and some prolific offenses, you might not need the defense to do all that much, but just kind of hold on. If you can win 30 to 20 every week,
that was kind of heavy. Didn't that Rams team go they scored 30 or more points in like 27 straight games?
Yeah, exactly.
Headed into the next season.
There's no Bill Belichick elixir to stop Jared Goff this time around. And so
Steve Spagnuolo.
The Lions played them and they got the victory. So I
think that's the matchup, man, right there. I think the Chiefs, you talking about Chris Jones versus our offensive line, you talking about Steve Spagnuolo versus Ben Johnson, Andy Reid versus AG, Mahomes versus our secondary. That's
money too.
I think that's the dream. That's probably the dream matchup the league wants.
Heart attack matchup. That's the matchup that everybody in Detroit. For 2 weeks waiting for Mahomes.
Okay. 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks preparing for that type of matchup. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's my matchup right there.
I like this Zadarius Smith move. I wish it could have been more, but trades are hard to come by. Defensive ends don't fall off of trees.
Yeah.
But Brad Holmes did the best he could, and now it's up to this team. Dan Campbell believes in him, so we'll see what happens. I do have to run, but I always enjoy talking football with you guys. Can't wait to talk with you guys again. Talk with Ted, Walt, Lamar, Avery. It's all good. So
it's
gonna be a good time. Look, pay attention to what happens this week too, because the Texans, they got some things going on, and when you can play defense like that, that's something to pay attention to. If CJ Stroud, that offensive line has been pretty crappy for him right now, but if he dials it up, he's got all the intangibles. and that's a good football team. You could be looking, if they get hot at the right time, they could do some damage and stifle some teams. So it'll be interesting to see this Lions football team. But we're talking about 7-1. It's everybody's happy. I mean, we're talking like everybody's double fisting, middle finger.
Whoa. Yeah.
Middle fingers up in the air, flipping the bird. And you got attitudes. You got the swagger. I mean, literally, your best player is rolling up in a Green Bay sucks sweatshirt.
You got to be the villain, man.
There's
no such thing as being the best team in the league and being liked. The Yankees were never liked. Right. The Bulls were never liked. Yep. The Patriots were never liked. You can be in the Spurs were never liked. And that was like the most likable, hardworking basketball team you could run across. So
it might as well be the villain then, I guess.
Might as well be the villain.
But that could come back to bite them. Let's see, because there's that fine line. Let's see how it rolls out. Thanks, guys.
Hey, no problem. John McEnroe. Give a hand for John McEnroe. All right.
I want to say one more thing about the schedule. Also, the roster. Isaiah Thomas is a guy people may not want to sleep on. He was an undersized defensive end, defensive tackle at Oklahoma. Never put on enough weight, oddly enough, for a guy to be in a college program for 4 years. And I think he left Oklahoma at some weird, he was around 275, if I'm not mistaken. They were playing him at D-tackle, whatever. Long, athletic guy, similar to what Deion Jordan was. He put on some weight since he got into the league, but he always had pretty good athleticism. He had the versatility to provide some pressure on the outside as well as jump inside, do some work there. He's a guy that I think fans shouldn't want to just completely sleep on. He could help us. He could be one of those low-key additions that help us down the stretch. More than anything, we need bodies. Like I said before, Broderick Martin, even though Broderick hasn't done anything since he's been here, he's still a young, athletic, healthy body with size. Because, Pascal, Makai Wingo, Levi, all of those dudes are kind of like size, height, weight, body type, the same guy. They're both around 6'2", all three of them 6'2", 280, 290 or whatever, 6'1 and a half. If you can get a Broderick Martin in there, 6'2", 6'3", 330 plus, that gives you another dancing bear. That gives you another dancing bear in the middle of that defensive line that can help us out tremendously. And, if you look at the schedule, man, we complained about having that bye early, but if you look at the schedule, after traveling to Houston, you're talking about host Jacksonville, at Indianapolis, host Chicago, host Green Bay, host Buffalo, at Chicago. You're talking about 6 weeks that we don't drive past Indiana. Then you travel across the map to Frisco. If we have the number 1 seed, you're talking about coming back home week 18 to host Minnesota. If we have the number 1 seed, we may not have to worry about traveling past anywhere else.
Yeah.
You talking about a situation where traveling to Southern California is the furthest this team travels for almost 2 months. Just looking at it from the Jacksonville game to potentially getting the number 1 seed and reaching the Super Bowl, we may travel to Southern California and that's it. The furthest we may travel outside of that is to Indiana to play the Colts. So the number 1 seed is huge for this team, man. Just imagine. I can't remember a team in NFL history having that much time to chill at home.
Yeah.
I think that's something, and Ted, I'm pretty sure you can comment on this. How important is it for a team that's going through injuries to not have to travel? To not catch any flights?
Yeah.
It's massive. It's massive. And Walt, the big thing too, when you look at it, there's multiple levels. So the layers, number 1, when you don't have to travel, you don't accumulate swelling, inflammation, and really the travel fatigue, particularly when you have to cross different time zones. So for us, it takes your body from a circadian rhythm standpoint, roughly 1 day per time zone traveled. So if you are going to a San Francisco, that's 3 hours. That's 3 days that you would take to actually acclimate fully from a circadian rhythm standpoint. Not that you always need to do that. And the NFL is unique because we literally play weekly. It's not like you can peak for this game and then say we're not peaking for that game. So that's one aspect of it. But the other thing to keep in mind, when these players get injured, They are rehabbing, and their rehab schedule is extremely structured, and their rehab material is extremely structured. So we're dealing with physical therapists, doctors, we're dealing with athletic trainers, and then reconditioning specialists on the performance side, strength and conditioning coaches, everyone working in this marriage, in this concept of, all right, what's best for the players? What's this step? That happens at the home facility. So when you don't have to leave, and especially when you don't have to leave on these far away West Coast to East Coast trips, you're just traveling to Indianapolis from Detroit. That's okay. You're going to Chicago. All right, you're on a 40-minute flight. Great. You maximize the time at home when you're in rehab, when you're particularly going through the modalities and the rehab protocols that they have designed for you from the team and the personnel. That is huge. That's why having the number one seed is the most important thing in the postseason, getting the home stretch, specifically when you're at a team like Detroit and you have Ford Field and you have the fans and how loud that's going to – that is a true home field advantage. When you have that, lock it up. If you have a chance to get the one seed, that is your best path to the Super Bowl. So when you look at it, it's so important for a multitude of reasons, Walt. And I think from a rehab standpoint, as you're trying to get healthy, it's those little things. You don't have to deal with a little extra inflammation because you had to sit on a 2 or 3 hour flight. I've been all around the league, and I've been in divisions where you have to fly like crazy. In LA, every year that I was with the Rams, we had to travel over 30,000 miles. When you look at a team like Detroit, the NFC North specifically, you get an early bye. Sometimes that can be a disadvantage. But when you flip it on the other side and you shorten that travel schedule and you only have to travel 10, 12, 15,000 miles, that's a significant advantage. So I love that for this team, especially down the stretch, because when you're playing the most important football in November, December, and January, that's when you need every little advantage that you can get.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love it.
Great
I love
stuff.
it. I love it. Hey, look. You look. I don't know how much you're getting paid for this. If you're getting paid, but I can't pay you. Okay, this is prime. This is prime. Spirit of Detroit never thought I would make it this far. We'd be doing film studies in the basement if I stayed on this. What's going on, Darcy? What's going on, man?
Walt has a show to go on, so I just wanted to, just tell him that. Tell you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He
Walt,
saw it. I'm pretty sure he saw it in a private chat.
Yeah. He's working hard. He's working hard. Well, I'm gonna end it with one question so y'all can make it to y'all respective shows, family members, babies, whatever it is. I'm gonna make sure y'all taken care of. One last question. It's gonna be a freebie. What do I have in my itinerary? My itinerary says, make the Lions great again? No. Oh, I'm kidding. My itinerary says, what happens this week against the Texans? I know y'all long-winded, so try to keep it short to make y'all shows.
Walt, you want to go?
I think we win. Primetime game, if I'm not mistaken, this will be CJ Stroud and a young Houston Texans team. First time being, the showcase game of the day, whether it's a Monday night or Sunday night for that matter, if I'm not mistaken. This team is undefeated in primetime games, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Dan Campbell, this team is mentally wired, business-like to go on the road and play these types of games. I think we go to Houston and we take care of business. I don't see any hiccups. I say we go to Houston, we get them boys somewhere around 33-20, 33-21.
Okay. 33-21. Hey, look, I don't think they the guys. I don't think they're the same. Watching film on them, they're not the same. Ted Raff, what you got? Hey, look, if we went 30-20, you a Swami. This will be the second week in a row that you was right.
Well, I had 24-20 last week. It turned out to be 24-14.
Okay, I remember you said 24, and I was like, oh, snap. Walt, I had to call you. Get my parlays right.
Did you make the bet? Did you make the bet?
This is going to be a fun matchup. If I had to, I'll give you a score. I'd say 31-24 Detroit. I do think that Houston's defense is going to be a little bit more stifling than what we're probably used to. There is a component. The primetime game is real. If you're not used to playing in primetime games, and these guys aren't, now not from a college standpoint, CJ Stroud has played in big games at night. from the college atmosphere. There's a difference. There's a subtle change. Physiologically, you got to know how to fuel your body when you're traveling to certain games. There's a process that takes place. And if you're not used to that, if you play every Sunday at 1 o'clock, that's a big adjustment when you're playing at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock because they're in a central time zone. That's a unique difference. Number two, when you look at this, you got Matt Burke on the defensive side. He's the defensive coordinator for the Texans. He was actually Schwartz's linebacker coach. He was Schwartz and Gunther Cunningham's right-hand man. You always have a little bit more added momentum when you're, all right, we're playing with a former team. I want to beat this team, things like that. And then they have what we talked about earlier, a defensive head coach. And then they got Bobby Slowick and they got CJ Stroud. Those guys can dial it up and they can play a really firm offensive game. I think AG will be ready for him. That's why I say 31-24. But I do think this defense on Houston, man, they can get after you. So we got to be cautious on that side.
Okay. Hey, look. Hey, if Zadarius Smith magically plays, it's not my fortuitous bet that he plays. But if he magically plays and we get some rips and some stunts, we can pressure this offensive line. Mm-hmm. I don't know this guy's name. This guy, number 74, is sorry. He's probably the worst left inside guard I've ever seen. Their tackles are not good, but their defensive ends are elite. Mm-hmm. Their defensive ends are great. But when I look at the film, and I'm going to do this on Saturday on my live show, again, we're going to break down what they do, what they like to do, what they don't like to do, personnel, everything. Tune in for that on the live show, Spirit of Detroit podcast. But also for my Facebook people, like, this is a great show. So join in. Please join in, because I'm telling you, I hate to plug myself, shameless plug. But hey, look, we do good work. Anyway, if Zadarius Smith comes in, I'm seeing 3 sacks from this team. I'm seeing 3 sacks. We can get 3 sacks. Hey, we might even see a Houston sighting. We might get off the bus this week. I don't know. But Houston can eat against this team, and I feel like Zadarius Smith.
What Houston you talking about? The Houston Rockets?
I'm talking.
Wait, come on, James. You talking about Jimmy Houston?
I'm talking about James Houston out of what? Jackson State. I forgot.
Via Florida. Yeah.
Via Florida. He can eat against this team, so I'm figuring they can eat. I'm figuring it's 33-20. I like that one. I like yours. 24. What'd you say? What'd you say before? 20. You said what?
31-24.
31-24.
Yeah.
I got this. 10-34.
Houston?
The Lions win. What?
No, I mean, I'm just asking. Just asking.
Yeah. Oh no, you're good. I just had to remind you, this Spirit of Detroit, not Spirit of exploits. Okay, we're not going.
Spirit of controversy. Spirit of pot stirring.
Exactly. The Lions lose, guys. No, I can't do that. I can't be that guy.
The villain.
Yeah, can't be the villain. Hey guys, you had a great show. I got a great show with you guys. Obviously, you guys come on. You don't have to come on, but you do. You do it so well. And Darcy, thank you to you. Shout out to you for producing and bringing a great show to the Spirit of Detroit podcast channel. Shout out to Detroit Lions News Station. Did I say station? Show. Shout out to Detroit Lions Station for helping me produce this and doing all the extra stuff that goes into making good shows, positive shows. So shout out to Darcy and everybody he's brought in. He's brought in a lot of guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Ted Raff, tell us where you can find you, and Walter Stringer, tell us where we can find you too. So I'm starting.
Ted Raff, Strength Coach, all the socials, YouTube channel included, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all that. Got a book coming out in about a month, so keep an eye out for that. I'll keep you guys posted on that.
Okay. We're gonna get the book.
Appreciate
you. Walter Stringer.
Oh, they already know, man. Lions Avenue podcast. You can catch us on YouTube. That handle is @Lions Avenue. @Lions Avenue. Or you can just go right to your search bar and type in Lions Avenue. We pop right up now. We special. Okay. A little bit. They ain't gotta type and then scroll all the way down to find us.
Nah. Y'all big time. And y'all
we medium time right now.
Not just a ride.
we medium time.
Big time. The level of content that you guys go in, the level of description, the level of breaking down film, you're my biggest competition. That's why I brought you on here. because I might as well collaborate than have more.
This man, he just gave away. He brought me on here to make me late for my show. That's what he did.
Great strategy.
Yeah. Hey, you got to build with one another, right? Like
you gonna be on the show, so you making yourself late.
You're gonna get me in trouble with my wife, man. I forgot, but I will be there. I'm gonna get off this show and do that show, and y'all can see us over there. And we go after that. We're gonna read Ted Rath's book. We're gonna be selling it. All right. We're gonna be selling it, Ted. We're gonna be selling. We ain't gonna bootleg you. We got you, bro. We got you.
Oh yeah, and all listeners, man, make sure y'all check out Ted on his channel. I was watching your fantasy football injury show video from a few days ago, man. You're very, very informative. Very informative, man. Huge asset.
Oh yeah,
Appreciate you.
Hey, don't big his head up, because we're gonna have to start paying this man. He gonna start having, he gonna send me an invoice, man. No.
He just started doing the show with a lawyer in the back.
With a lawyer in the back.
Every time you don't want him to say something, you just place a hand on the shoulder.
Don't go there.
Whoa, too much information, Ted.
Yeah. Thanks. Like, comment, subscribe, y'all. Follow their socials, follow their channels. Love y'all. The Spirit of Detroit podcast in association with Detroit Lions News. Love y'all.
Fine season, homie. It's not about today. It's about the future. You do the work now, and all of the shit that you could ever want to do for your family, your kids, your loved ones, it's all going to be on a whole nother stratosphere. It's time to stay focused.
The spirit of Detroit